Finnegan,
Here.
Tim Gerlich,
Here.
Ron Stutzman.
Here.
We have quorum.
Thank you. Have a pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
everyone get their minute package.
Yes.
Any additions or corrections? I have to say you're doing a very good job with that.
And I have to admit, I've had years of experience.
Do we have a motion on the minutes?
I make a motion to approve the minutes from last month.
I second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, so. Those wishing to address the Airport Advisory Commission need not request permission in advance. Action taken as a result of public comments will be limited to directing staff to study the matter or reschedule the matter for consideration and decision at a later time pursuant to ARS 38-431 and subsequent. Okay, we have a staff report from our airport manager.
I was going to say good evening, good afternoon. All right, based aircraft, we're around 91 plus or minus. Storage aircraft, airliners, 221 at present. We're waiting for the November fuel gallons, both avgas and Jet A. Those have not been received. Approved budget, expenditures, and capital, all that's much the same. You'll note when we get into airport revenues for November 2018, 105,359. Airport revenues to date, 532,735. Expenses.
Excuse me, is that starting in July? When does?
That is, I believe, year to date, yes, I believe that's starting in July. Revenues, we did that. Expenses, November of this year, 100,099. Expenses year to date, 435,739. And encumbrances to date, 935,199. That includes the master plan that we will have our first meeting of this Thursday, 13th. That's a round number of around 500,000 or the high 499,000 of that. And again, that number of the master plan, 90% of that will be reimbursed to us through the federal government and ADOT. The supplemental grant for runway 321 has gone in. Again, we will not hear back from FAA headquarters probably until March in regards to where that's at. Our regional ADO, Airport District Office, is not in the loop on that, so it'll be a while till we hear where that's at. The master plan, as mentioned a couple minutes ago, our first kickoff meeting is December 13th, which will be this Thursday. The Part 139 certificate, we're still working on that. Need to follow up on that. The inspection and deficiency status, I think as was mentioned at the last airport board meeting, that has been taken care of. The runway's been painted, so the deficiencies in regards to our 139 inspection a few months ago should be taken care of. And the CADEX for the runway project has been approved by the FAA. So we have a 3-year clock that's ticking on that. But that's a huge plus to have their environmental taken care of. airport development and maintenance projects. The Dross site, they will be showing up this coming month, January of 19, and they will, I think, if I recall correctly, there are 7 or 8 sub-sites out there they're going to work on, and they'll start from the site that's closest to Straubbe's and be heading the opposite direction. And I believe they, at this point, they have they have the funding, but the money they can actually get their hands on initially before it goes through some federal process through the Justice Department. The first 3 sites they'll take care of. We checked that on Google. There are no airplanes parked there at present, so as far as doing their corings in those areas, it should be a non-issue. I will coordinate with Kingman Airline Services as they start moving up, and we need to get our planes moved. The runway, again, that was mentioned. The thought right now is if we get the supplemental, that'll move the project up a year, and we'll be working on it in 19 per the ACIP that was submitted to FAA and ADOT last week. Right now, the timeline is we work on the runway resurfacing in 20. But again, if we get the supplemental, that'll bump that up a year. The apron, haven't moved on that. Striping is all complete. That's done. Gates, I'll be talking to an engineering consultant on what I'll call temporary fixes so that we don't rip out the chassis of our cars when we go up to put in the combination to go in through a gate. And the terminal, I believe those plans are imminent. We've not seen them yet. And we did have a gas leak out there about a week ago, maybe 2 weeks ago, which we resolved. Airport hangar occupancy. Right now we have 30 hangars that are occupied. Interestingly enough, we've had 3 vacancies, one that's about to move in. And executive hangars, nothing's changed there. Covered tie downs, nothing there. Hangar development, again, as we get into the master plan, we'll be talking with consultant, and I'll be talking with all of you in regards to where the best area is for a covered parking shade port, I guess I would call it, out there on the ramp. We continue to have inquiries on building hangars, and in fact, I had one this afternoon for a Gulfstream of all things. That's
For what?
A Gulfstream.
Wow.
Yeah.
Could you speak up just a little bit?
I'm sorry. Is this better? Yeah, I normally I'm not quiet. I apologize. Yeah, so this afternoon, inquiries on possibility of a Gulfstream. Might have a visit from those folks this coming Thursday morning. So we'll see where that goes. The appraisal, I've contacted an appraiser in the Tucson area. They are up for doing an appraisal for us, have sent us a scope of work that needs to be signed. The cost will be somewhere between $3,000 to $3,500 for an appraisal. I'll be working with some of you, maybe one or two, in regards to similar airports to look at. They'll probably look at a couple, I think at least 3 lease rates here, but then other airports as well. And again, the premise is not hitting the Phoenix metro area so much as other rural airports to get a better idea of what the lease rate is liable to be. And this gentleman specializes in airports, so it's not just any old appraiser, it's somebody that understands the whole FAA dynamic. And in that appraisal dynamic, we've found that there's a 48-inch drainage pipe that serves that area. This morning we cleared all of the drainage areas. all of the drainage plates, many of which are railroad ties. We'll be looking into replacing those with steel, since wood does not work well in this environment. And so I'll get a survey done on that site, hopefully in the next couple of weeks. And then on top of that, verify where the water and sewer lines, which are, I believe, next to Flightline Drive. And then have the gentleman fly up and get the appraisal process moving. Had a water issue in one of our city hangars, which is what precipitated the whole drainage dynamic. That appears to have been addressed. The last good rain we had, there was no flood in that hangar, so I think that's been fixed. And again, it was a matter of fixing the drainage channels so that the water could actually drain off-site. And then our maintenance staff, as we have vacancies, we're basically going in, greasing the doors, making sure the tension's correct, and doing all the maintenance and cleaning them out. Tear down operators, no new discussions. I'll be talking with them on a somewhat related item. Had a flight training entity on site today that was asking questions and has an interest in possibly being here. We'll see where that goes. I seem to get interest in that regard about every couple of weeks. So there definitely is interest. Airport events, again, I think we're working with the EAA in the possibility of a Ford Tri-Motor coming here. There's some details that need to be resolved in regards to that, but we're working through with that. No proposed zoning cases at present. And again, you'll note that Mojave Drive, there's been a lot of work out there the last, I'd say 3 or 4 days, last couple of weeks in regards to cleaning up the drainage. And I believe over by True Value, there was some work done this morning over there in regards to a plugged drainage grate, that is. And then no noise complaints at present. So any questions?
I have just one. Is that 48-inch drainage pipe, is that the World War II one that was put in then?
That is correct, yes.
Where is that located?
If you go to the perimeter fence and walk back about 15 feet, you'll note a ditch.
Swale.
A swale. And it's at the bottom of that swale. So it's sort of a double ditch dynamic. You have a swale for the water, and then below that, the 48-inch pipe.
And that's where all the drainage goes from the airport?
That's where the majority of it on the flight line goes. There are other drainage areas on other parts of the airport.
Thank you.
This may sound like a stupid question, but after they bore their holes, 140 of them, are they going to fill them in right away?
That is my anticipation. I can ask that question directly.
Because we really don't need 140 holes, just...
No, they fill them in.
That question was asked when the consultant was up here and gave his presentation, and he said they would be filled in so they can be run over without no problem. We're not going to lose a tail wheel on one.
That's what I was concerned about. Thank you.
Certainly.
Well, I have been unable to get a hold of Bob Friday yet, but I'm absolutely assured that when he was a kid, he ran up and down from one end to the other in that 48-inch pipe, and I will find out exactly where it goes to and from.
There is a large drainage area that is just on the edge of the dump, and that appears to be where, at that end where it goes. And we will probably be cleaning that out because I inspected it this morning, and there is about 75 years worth of drainage in there. A lot of sediment.
Well, I'm pretty sure that the drainage for the newest hangars, the 3 rows, that goes 90 degrees to the taxiway and goes right over into that ditch, because there's no place else that the drainage ever goes to except in 2 grates, and it has to be over to that. So, you know, when that was done, they knew what they had. There's gotta be documents with Z&H someplace, or, you know, in fact, they didn't leave them when they left, doesn't mean they're not there somewhere. Somebody's got those.
Well, in either January or February, once the final agreement is done with CNS, FAA made some changes, not major changes, but minor changes to the agreement that we're going to sign with CNS for our 5-year engineering airport contract. Once that's done, I'm going to bring their engineer up here and have them meet with the folks that are doing the draw site. And we're going to start talking about details in regards to, so when all the core samples are done and all the soil's removed, and at least that's what's been sold at this point, what sort of soil or aggregate's going to be put in there? And then on top of that, what sort of pavement thickness or strength coefficient are we going to put on top of it? At the same time, basically, I'll be asking questions about the airport drainage.
Okay. Any more questions?
Yeah, when the appraiser arrives, do you know what other rural airports he's going to be considering in his evaluation?
We verbally went through some the other day, but that's one of the reasons why I'll be coming back to you all in regards to what we select. One of the ideas was Page. Another one was Marana, although I believe at Marana all the hangars are leased by are leased to one tenant who subleases them all. So that actually might not be particularly helpful. And then there were a couple others which, for right now, I'm not remembering.
Just off the top of my head, I know that Page does not own any hangars. They lease their hangars on a yearly basis. They lease the dirt, and so the hangars are privately owned, and that might not be the best comparison.
Yeah, one that I will not compare to, based on the Part 16 baggage that's inherent there, is Lake Havasu. They have some lease rates that are in the range of 7 cents, and that's definitely not a place we want to go.
I understand.
Well, just so for clarification, this appraisal will cover both hangar rents and ground leases?
It will be a long-term ground lease.
Uh-huh.
By which we'll be able to do a RFP or an SOQ and figure out, see what the interest is in somebody coming on site. And again, the way I'm going to, at this point, word the advertisement when that goes out, aviation development. I'm not going to say hangars, I'm not going to say FBOs, because I don't have a clue as to what the interest level out there is. And then at that lease rate, see where that takes us and see if there is definitive interest.
They give you an idea on how long it'll take?
I believe what he said was anywhere from 4 to 6 weeks. So it shouldn't be that long once we get the ball rolling. The big thing right now is I just need to verify where the sewer and the water is, and then get a survey of the site to where it's definitive as to the boundaries.
Sure.
The other thing is Page is landlocked. They can't add any more. Their current rate is 36 cents a square foot for leased land per year.
Yeah, and again, the focus will be on, well, yeah, and that's a good point. Probably not a particularly good one to compare to.
I could tell you that Page is not a representative airport. It has a friend, is a tie-down tenant up there way down on the south end. Wasn't that long ago, I used to be up there a lot, and there was almost no hangars. Now they filled it up with hangars, but there's no airplanes in the hangars. There's jet skis and ski boats, and they fly their jet out there, park it in the hangar, and take all the toys to the lake. So 2 weeks a year, there's a jet plane in the hangar. The rest of the time, not. And I question whether the FAA has either knows about it or has done their their duty with that one, because if that used up all the land, that's not fair to the residents.
And as you well know, that is a real stickler these days with the FAA, thanks to the debacle down at Glendale about 6 years ago. So yeah, sooner or later, they end up on your doorstep knocking, and they will want to look at hangars. Any other questions?
Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, Chairman Hayes and committee members. This past month, what I went out and did is compiled a list of all land that the city owned out at the industrial park. So of that list, I found about 19 properties. 7 of those parcels are less than 2 acres. We have about 4 properties that are between 5 and 10 acres, and about 4 properties that are between 10 and 20 acres, another 4 properties that are larger than 20 acres. The total acreage is roughly 258.91. We currently have 2 applications submitted to purchase somewhere around 20 acres of properties out there, and we have 4 projects looking at the either the Kingman Industrial Park or areas adjacent to the city that would service the city of Kingman residents and employees with the city. I've been working diligently with the county in regards to the roads. I'm sure you've seen some activity out there in the last 3 weeks. They've been doing some right-of-way grading on those roads. And a couple of the roads we're looking to get into the county system, Bonanza between Shipping and North Commerce Drive. That is one road that we are looking at doing. In addition, we're looking to get portions of Transport Drive, East Government Way, Windrose Lane, and North Interstate Way. We've had meetings today on that, just today. And so there's a process that we have to go through, but it looks relatively positive. In regards to rail, in October, Patriot Rail finished a capital improvement project that cost them roughly $5,900. They replaced 50 cross ties in the rail out at the park. October, we serviced 168 rail cars to park customers. This was about 27 cars more than the month of September. We had about 613 storage of cars on hand, which is about 20 cars on the line each day. This was 223 cars more than in September. So we saw an uptick of use of the rail in October. We currently averaging about 115 rail cars a month between roughly 12 companies. That's about 14% of our park tenants taking advantage of rail at the industrial park. We're doing some marketing of those properties. Recently, our first for sale sign was installed on 127 acres of property out there. And I've got a purchase order in for 4 additional for sale signs for some of those properties that I mentioned earlier. We've been doing some business and site visits with companies. I don't know if it was mentioned last time, but last month I conducted a business visit with Paul Gaines and his company. We did some pictures of their activities out there, as well as got some testimonials from Paul. We're going to be using these type of materials in our marketing to target aviation businesses through our website that's being developed right now. I've also met with Kingman Airline Services. We took some pictures out there, and I acquired a testimonial from their president, Kevin Dolan. I've got plans to reach out to additional aviation businesses at the park. On the industrial side, we've been also doing the same thing. I've been going out to meet with businesses, taking pictures, and getting testimonials in preparation for that. As indicated, we've been adding signs along Mojave Airport with directional signs going out to the businesses. A recent sign that just went up this last week was on Interstate, and we've got Lamanco, Acton Welding, Elysium Tire Recycling, Cascade Tissue Group, Karnak, Interstate Group, and Laren. That sign recently went up and installed. I attended November 19th, a CAMA meeting, and one of the discussions they had was in regards to getting some good traffic counts of how many trucks and trailers are coming into the park. And so we've gone out, and they asked me to help, attain those numbers. So we got some counting strips that you've noticed across when you guys enter. So we're in the process of getting those numbers together. And last but not least, we for the EDMC Commission, we conducted some tours for the commissioners. So I met with Deborah as well as Commissioner Hardy, and we took them around the park and the tour, and they were very just impressed with everything that has been done and all the activity that's been going on out there. So with that, if there's any questions.
Do you have any parcels now that are in for appraisal where someone's ready to make a deal?
Yeah, we do.
How many?
2.
2. Does Gary think that'll help his capital improvement budget? It's nice to know that there's gonna be money coming in besides what we're collecting in rents.
Well, you've got the appraisal, still got to go through the process. Somebody can always back out. So hopefully, it goes all the way through to purchase and an auction.
Did you do any good yesterday with that one I gave you? Does that have any promise?
I did meet with them, yep, and it was a good meeting. And,
Good.
They're not at the point where they want to do something right now, but, should they continue, they'll look to do some expansions in that building, both those companies that are sharing. So it's a good conversation.
You mentioned the rail cars. Do you know how much each rail car is supposed to be paying?
Off the top of my head, no. It's in a contract. It's 100 and a little bit over 100. Do you know, Gary?
Oh, it comes out to
About
it's a 4% overhead
We can get you that
in
number.
one of the cars.
Okay. So when there's 115 cars that come in, we get 4% of what they charge?
Is that what it is?
Okay. Are we getting that?
According to finance,
Okay.
they report it to us and we collect a check.
Okay, thank you.
There's another piece to this. You're talking about the rail cars that come in to deliver, correct?
Deliver or storage.
Or pick up?
Yeah.
Okay, I know this is still existent, but during the recession, there was a surplus of cars, and the railroads charge, if I remember what Tim told me, it was like $50 a week to store the car.
Mhm.
Might have been a month, but I think it was a week. He was storing them over here for $30. So not all of those are cars that have delivered or will pick up at the industrial park. They're also storage, which is an additional moneymaker for them, which the airport gets a piece of.
Okay.
We, Patriot is a good partner. In fact, is every time, they're in touch with us probably a couple times during the month. And so anything that we do in the way of marketing or they market, they let us know about. So in fact is, one of the things that Bennett and I have been working on is actually as a result of Patriot's marketing. So of their marketing. And so if that deal is signed, then we will there'll be a substantial increase in the number of rail cars coming in. And so, but again, they brought that one to us. So our benefit on this one is because it's just an existing rail siding within the park will be that percentage that we get from Patriot. So
Great.
they've been really good to it. They're excellent to work with. So
Are there any plans to extend the railroad?
if in any of the lots that are required, and so the one thing that will all be based on the customer's needs. So
Sure.
But right now, we have the two biggest lots are rail served that we have on this for sale right now, or we have on the market, so they can be served on either side, so, on the rail piece, absolutely. So, the other thing is, too, and Commissioner Hayes, when you talk about selling the property, because, we've got that 16 acres, so we're waiting on that tab now to what that cleanup's gonna be. The early on estimates were $65,000 to $70,000, but, it's just one of those things, we just gotta clean it up. And so, as soon as the consultant comes back with, the range of this thing, and then we'll be able to get our hands wrapped around that, so, yeah. It was like that money you enjoyed just briefly in the capital budget, then it was gone.
Yeah. Okay, any other questions of them?
I have a request. I'd love to see a picture of all the acreage, just so we can spot where it is next time.
One of the things that I'm doing is putting all the acreage on a GIS map, so you're gonna be able to pull up right on your computer and see all the properties outlined. That's being done right now as well. So
We did that in conjunction with the new website, so we did it simultaneously.
So you will be seeing that.
Okay.
Great, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Okay, navigation easements.
Mr. Chairman, data was provided, but we're gonna need additional data, so it's still gonna be next month before you get a report or something headed your way, so.
Can you explain a little bit about the data and the process?
Well, again, it's looking at other airports that have it, that have navigation easements. Most of them are in-state. We've looked at one out of California. The laws vary a little bit from state to state is the reason they state them a little different. So we just, I wanted to look at a little bit more of Statesboro, which is off the end. They have to re-up, and we're in discussions on that, Steve and I, so that's where it's kind of sitting right now. Question?
That's probably our most critical piece, is it not?
Yes, if we extend the runways to the north, so that's what we're, yeah.
That's most of the landings. Okay. Any comments on that? Okay, airport rates and charges and lease policies.
Yes, each one of you have a copy of the second report. Essentially, you directed us to check the rates at both Buckeye Airport and Globe Airport. Buckeye seems to be doing a lot of things right. They've got Copper State coming there in February. They have 40 T hangars, all of which are occupied, and a waiting list of 25. So there's a lot of interest in that. They currently are charging $112.20 per T hangar per month, and the hangars are 966 square feet. That works out to be about 12 cents per square foot. They don't have any large hangars. They have one very large hangar that they are storing a number of aircraft in. We reached out to the Globe Airport. They are currently charging $105 a quarter for T hangars. That works out to be $35 a month. Significantly less than any of the other airports that we've surveyed. The airport manager didn't know and didn't have access at his fingertips to the square footage of the T hangars in Globe. And Globe Airport is now run by, I believe, well, it's one of the Indian tribes. It's not, I think, maybe the Pima Indian tribe. That new information lowered the average per square foot rent per month for T hangars owned by the aircraft to 21 cents per square foot per month for owned hangars that are just rented out.
Now, I have, back to your first paragraph, you've got 12 cents per square foot, I think, per month for a hangar, and then you got 25 cents per square foot, per year.
For land lease,
Gotcha,
right.
For land lease, all right. How we get that much difference? Yeah, all right. Well, obviously, the Indian ownership has opens things wide up to all kinds of variations that things apply or don't apply. But you have a lot more from the first report. This is just a supplemental.
This is
to
a
that.
supplement, right. But it did lower the hangar rents for hangars that are owned by their airports from 22 cents per square foot to 21 cents per square foot. And Kingman remains at 33 cents per square foot. I think that
How many airports in total have we looked at?
11 that have T hangars that they rent out. Clearly, this is indicating that we might be a little higher than, we're certainly higher than the average. We've got a pretty good cross-section of airports from metropolitan areas to rural areas.
Are we gonna put it in a spreadsheet or something? I mean.
We can.
Yeah, and typically we could even do throw the low and the high out and kind of run a median, but, we can do that later. Was that the plan?
The plan is what the commission wants it to be.
I didn't bring my previous.
Well, we wanted to get as much material as we could without putting all this burden on staff.
Right.
To look at what's out there.
Okay.
And I don't know whether the best answer is for staff to come up with some numbers. I don't know whether we should look at it as just all by itself, or we have to put it in the context of, well, we've got a budget we've got to take care of no matter what. We don't have any debt.
Well,
So,
clearly,
I'm not sure where we sit with all that.
clearly, it might be a little premature to decide that, oh, we really need to lower the rents. Because I think we want to give it a little longer to see where we're at financially. But,
Our evaluation too.
and we're going to have an appraisal done.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think we ought to wait until
Yes,
after
oh,
that
yeah.
takes place.
Right, definitely.
But
Because that covers the land component without any
that
question.
covers the leased land component. We've got some revenue that may be coming in from sales of real estate. So, at this point, though, I would make a motion that we temporarily suspend the current 3% increase and recommend to the city council that they
Okay,
suspend
I
the-
think we can do that at the end to put an agenda item to do that all by itself for next meeting.
That'd
It
be
doesn't
fine.
come up until July.
Right.
Right, we've got plenty of time, but
Yeah.
I think a recommendation to the city council that at least we temporarily suspend the 3% increase would be appropriate.
Yeah, I'd like to add to that. The airport authority did suspend that on their own,
Yes.
Right,
and at least for the hangars, I understand, and there may or may not have for the land leases. But that, when the city resumed management of the airport, it was reinstated because that's what was written in the lease documents.
right.
So those were put in force. And I do support the idea of doing that, but that was gonna be my question, was when would that next increase take place? And that's July?
July.
I think it's
yeah.
July.
So I think we need to just put that on the agenda for next month.
Sounds good.
I'd also like to see on spreadsheet or whatever, the last time the airports we're looking at have raised or changed pricing, so we know how valid, I mean, 20 years ago, probably, or even 10, might not be as valid as people that evaluated and did it last year. So I just to give us a reference.
So you want us to call all of these again?
Thank you.
Is that what you're saying?
Thank you.
Well, I think maybe on that same concept, though, try to narrow down maybe a smaller list of airports to compare to, and then maybe try to get some additionals if we want to focus on that. But also, I think the appraiser, once they're involved, maybe we could get some input from them as where they may think we would be comparable to, just as far as usage and location, that sort of thing, maybe get an idea of, and then narrow that data gathering down to get more information on a few selected places.
My
of the
understanding
whole
of,
list.
my understanding of the appraisal, it's gonna be on land lease only, Steve, or?
Correct.
Yeah, so they
But
won't.
that's the
that being-
land component.
Yeah, that's the land component.
Right, but that being the case, hopefully if this is their field of expertise, they may be at least able to advise on their opinion and what airports
Yeah,
in the state would be
suggestions.
comparable for the sake of what your subcommittee is doing, just to take into consideration.
Yep.
Okay,
Another nice thing to know would be, what would it cost to replace it? Anytime you're appraising anything, that's one of the factors you want to look at. And I don't know what's happened to construction costs since we built the last ones. I think steel's gone up some, but I'm not sure about much else, so there may not be much more of a cost, and then we can look at that.
Steel could be up a lot, depends when you price it.
Well, but you know, we're not buying the steel, we're buying the building.
I know.
Okay, so we'll put that on the agenda for next month.
okay.
Okay, anything else on the rents and charges?
You have anything?
No, but we could put it in a spreadsheet, so it'd be easier to read.
Okay, next item, airport lease terms and conditions. Steve and I have about this much material along that line. And I would like a sense of the committee on one issue. You've all seen plenty of fine print that has as many gotchas as you can put in there. It's all one-sided, and of course, typically the airport's the power player in this situation. It rubs me the wrong way when I see that. You know, the city attorney is gonna insist on certain things, and rightfully so. There's responsibilities and obligations and you know, rights that come with a contract. But from just the standpoint of, if you read that, should we just do it like everybody else does it, right out of all the gotchas you can put in, or do we want to make a written handshake out of this thing? I'm even thinking of a preamble that covers what everybody's purpose is, and if you are not aligned on a purpose, you shouldn't be there.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong. In the document that gave this area, I think it went originally to the county, the purpose was well-defined, that we are supposed to promote aviation. So I would hope you would make it as friendly a document as you can.
We are supposed to do that, and that's my personal opinion, but I want a sense from the committee. I don't want to come up with something that's,
KISS.
yeah, I mean, you know, it's still a legal document, there's still an obligation. Right. You know, once you sign a lease, if the violations occur, whether it's non-payment or anything else, you've got to go through the steps, unless they just pack up and leave. And it's unfortunate, but it always happens. We've got a fair amount of hangars now, and it's happened at least 3 times that I know of, the time I've been here, where hangars nearby me were subject to eviction. So I don't think it was a big problem, it just, they didn't pay.
And there's a couple of aircraft parked on the ramp that have been there for a couple decades. And I don't know if they're paying or not, but they look like they're.
Well, if they're on Arizona's ramp, then That's his issue.
No, they're not.
Oh, well, that's another issue, and I don't know anything about that. Which area, we got the DC 4.
No, there's a Tomahawk.
Aero Commander?
That's on, I'm sure that's on Arizona's.
There's a Tomahawk down near the D hangars. And there's I think it's a 150 that says Alaska on the tail,
172.
172.
I'm curious, would it be possible for us just to send a request to airport management to report on those things? We can compile a list and just
Yeah,
ask
that's,
Yeah, if we
for
have-
current
Are
status.
these derelict, do you think?
That's the question, I think.
that's the
Yeah.
question, yeah, we'll, and it's been brought up before.
There
There is data somewhere.
was a blanket out there for a long time, and the guy kept paying the rent, and he'd come out and put air in the tires. And then one day he's out there taking stuff off of it. I said, what are you gonna do? He said, well, I'm just gonna part it out. The next day he was out there with a chainsaw and cut the wings off and it was all gone.
Jeez.
So but he paid his rent for 10 years. It never flown. So didn't make much sense to handle it that way, but that's the way it was, as long as he pays his rent.
I say make it simple.
Okay, I appreciate that. Okay, we have any other announcements or requests for our agenda, or any other situation that you want to put out there or put on the agenda?
Yeah, I'm curious as to when we're gonna get another member for this seat.
I do believe that is gonna be on the next agenda. Our agenda is not yet.
Okay.
I was told in December.
Waited for the new council to take office to.
Have you guys, heard about anybody else that wanted to apply? Because I think there's just one application
No,
for the open spot.
There was an inquiry about that, and then the decision was that that information could not be shared with the commission members as far as the applicants, so we have no information regarding that.
I will check on that. I'm sure if that's.
Well, if that's the case, that there's only one, then I think we could talk to some people and get some more. They just go to the city clerk to file that?
The form is also on the city website. They can they can fill it out and then turn it in any way that's easiest for them. But
Yeah.
yeah, if you know somebody, they should turn in an application.
We were led to believe that when the appointments were made, that you had 14 to choose from. Are the other
I wondered
7?
if they had decided they were no longer available. I'm not sure. I was told there was one, so that's probably something else we should check on.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
How much time would they have to get their application in?
Before the agenda is made, which would be Thursday.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome. Soon.
hustle.
Okay, any other items? Okay, we have any requests to speak? All right. A quick meeting? I guess we got a little bit accomplished. Thank you very much. Oh, next meeting, well, we know when that is, so that'll all come out. And 3 o'clock is okay? This is working?
Better.
Yes.
All right, we'll stay with 3. That's okay?
I move we adjourn.
All right?
Second.
Aye.
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 Motion carried.
Tell me, why wasn't